Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Lumberslayer and Friends podcast. I am the one true Lumberslayer, Alex Abjan, joined as always by Adam Friedman. Hey now.
Yo.
We start every episode with beer. Adam, what are we drinking today?
If it's okay with you, I'd like to do the Oktoberfest foist.
Because it's October? Why not?
What day is it? October?
It's Nudie Magazine Day! Goddamn right. All right.
Hand me one of thems.
Wapow. Wapow.
North Peak Brewing Company. Very familiar, but I don't think we've had them on the show.
I don't think we have either.
Whoa, let's not drop things.
Yeah, not really. You want a one that you didn't drop?
Well, I mean, we got to drink it at some point anyway, so might as well just...
Well, I don't want it popping off on you. So with North Peak, I'm a big fan of, they make an IPA called Diabolical. I think
Sounds metal.
It's pretty fucking good. Siren is pretty decent from them.
That's the one I'm most familiar with.
I will say this. I don't generally like to do this, but probably the most lackluster tap room / restaurant I've been to in Michigan.
Wow. Wow.
Was really underwhelmed. They were very restaurant forward, which it's fine, but just really not exciting. No exclusives. Just, yeah, on my journey of beer, just really not impressed with North Peak. Cool location.
Usually good beer, though.
Good building, but boring on the beer exclusives.
A couple things to go over here. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and pour our beer so we can drink.
Oh, we're going to crack them. If we're going to be talking, we might as well be drinking.
North Peak and Jolly Pumpkin are closely entwined, or they're friends, or owned in some capacity in the same group. And if you look at this can, it says Dexter and Traverse City, Michigan. Now, I know for a fact that Jolly Pumpkin is out of Dexter. So, is there ownership crossover there?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Because when you go to Jolly Pumpkin Taproom, they always have North Peak stuff. So I don't know what the relationship is there.
I don't either, but like of all the collaborations and teaming up of breweries, having something to complement Jolly Pumpkin, I think is essential.
Yeah. Since
they lean heavily on the sours.
Yeah.
Really quick side note about, did we talk about Rogue and Dark Horse?
I think we talked about it, but not on here.
Fucking crazy. So, Rogue Brewery out of Royal Oak, Michigan, as the name might imply. Didn't they buy Right Brain, or did they just go into partnership with Right Brain?
I thought they acquired Right Brain,
okay. And
then what you're getting at is they acquired Dark Horse as well.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
For like a brewery that's been around for 5 years now?
Mm-hmm.
To kind of absorb two major players.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Two of the oldest guys, most established in the state.
Fucking crazy. So.
Anyway, so this is Dauntless Oktoberfest Lager. Now this is the other thing I wanted to get at here. Now we just had this discussion off mic as well. So it says Oktoberfest Lager. Now, to me, Oktoberfest, when you say that, lager is implied because the style of Oktoberfest is indeed a lager. German Märzen style fest beer.
Right. And I pointed out, I've never seen lager attached to an Oktoberfest name, so I was intrigued. I definitely wanted to do an Oktoberfest because it's that time of year, man. Gots to be doing it.
Let's cheers to beer so we can
cheers to beer.
Get some of this liquid in us.
Wow. Very fizzy. A lot of carbonation. It's like bubbling on me like a pop would. If you sit with a Pepsi. It's fucking crazy.
Very lagery.
Very light.
Yeah, it's crisp. It's got like this orangey goldenness going on.
A little bit of amber.
It's not your yellow fizzy. This is that true, Bavarian malt.
5.8. It's not bad. Toasty, malty copper. I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I definitely feel like this is most properly enjoyed out of a big mug or a boot. Man, I would love like one of those big, like the one you got from Wynwood would be perfect. Like pour 2 cans in there, go to town.
True that. The thing I like that North Peak does with their labeling is they've got a consistent look throughout their labels, but they always feature a monster on it. Like the Diabolical has a jackalope on it, Siren, obviously, Siren. Some kind of like Bigfoot, swampy monster-esque looking thing here.
Yeah, but I mean, those ears almost look like
Goblin.
it's not your typical Sasquatch. It's like something else.
I like it.
That's a squatch.
Squatchy out here. Fuck.
I like it. I think it nails the style. This is kind of what you reach for when you're looking for an Oktoberfest.
Yeah, this is not bad, like, cold fall day around the fire drinking beer right here.
Yeah, plus, I mean, it's one of the things you want to stay away from when you're drinking lagers is you want the drinkability is there, but you don't want it to be light. So there's a huge difference between a lager beer and a light beer. Huge difference. I mean, this thing is 5.8. It's damn near 6%, so it does pack that. It's a real beer. This is not light beers. It's not, 4.5%. Piss water. This is real beer, and I appreciate it. It's delicious.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the like I said, I had not a bad experience, just was thoroughly unimpressed. I've steered away from North Peak recently, just because it's never been like, oh shit, there's a North Peak, I'm gonna go for it. So
yeah,
this was nice. I think you made a good choice.
Well done. So let's get into a topic here. Let's talk about thrash metal.
Okay.
We don't cover thrash very often at all.
Not a lot.
I think maybe 2 or 3 other times since we've been doing this podcast the last couple years have we really went deep into a thrash album. Why do you think that is?
Because Adam Friedman is not a huge thrash fan. That is why I think we don't do it that often.
This is my fault. Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and blame you right off the bat.
Case closed.
Thrash is... It's not a difficult subject to go on, but it's really easy to find straightforward, riff-driven thrash. It's a style that has kind of gone out of style.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly the old school 80s sound. It's very primitive, and it's something that has been built on, and it's not a style that has been a, hey, let's go back to it. And when it has, with like, you talk like your Municipal Waste type stuff, it tends to be cheesy party stuff. I mean, there's some guys that are doing really cool stuff. Like, you got your Warbringers are doing really, really nice stuff with modern thrash.
Yeah, I was going to name drop them too. Well, that Power Trip is what everyone was raving about. Was that 2 years ago that came out? Or was it last year? Man, like, that was everyone's favorite shit.
Right. And you've got your second wave of thrash stuff too, like your Lamb of Gods, which I wouldn't even compare to what we're about to go over.
Yeah, but thrash is not what comes to mind to me when I hear Lamb of God. That's death metal, right?
Yeah. So like thrash has just become kind of more a genre that you sprinkle in to your modern day stuff, and you don't necessarily go purist. Today's subject, we're going to be talking about Toxic Holocaust's new album, Primal Future 2019, which is about as hard of a slap in the face of, here's some 80s thrash.
Pure.
You're going to get.
Yeah, pure thrash.
So, Toxic Holocaust is a interesting band to go over. For most of Toxic Holocaust's existence, it has been the one-man project of one Joel Grind. The previous 2 Toxic Holocaust records have been made with a band featuring Joel Grind on guitar and vocals and having a bass player and a drummer come in. Those 2 albums are my favorite Toxic Holocaust albums. They blend a little bit more Death. It's a little bit heavier. It's still very thrash forward. Conjuring Command and Chemistry of Consciousness, I think, are two very, very, very well made thrash albums. So during that period with the Toxic Holocaust band, Joel did a side solo project called the Yellow Goat Sessions, which sounds a lot closer to earlier Toxic Holocaust straight thrash metal stuff. Still a little bit heavier, but closer to what Toxic Holocaust originally went out to. So with this album, we are back to Joel Grind alone. And it is quite evident that he is going back to that old school straight thrash sound.
So sixth full length, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct. In a fucking litany of EPs and splits and compilations and bunch of 7-inch releases, like all kinds of crazy shit has gone out. This dude's quite prolific for being a one-man project, and this is the first full length in, I think, 6 years. So it's been a minute since the last one came out. What do you think of this sound overall?
You want me to go to my general comments before we go track by track? Is that what you're telling me to do?
I feel like this is going to be a very quick review.
There's really good moments and cool things that he does in this album that are worth noting, but the other 80% of it is a repetitive, one-dimensional sound.
Okay.
And what that repetitive, one-dimensional thing is, he does well, for sure, but it's really just the same stuff. Even the structure of a lot of these tracks is the same thing over and over again. Most of these tracks are 4 minutes and change, and there's a clearly defined intro, your middle section, quick guitar solo, and an outro, and it's done. Which is, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but when you do that 5-6 times, and even your thrash riffs are really similar, basically the same riffs in a slightly different modified way. It's a little bit uninteresting, but then there's and I'll get into this in our track by track, but there's a couple of areas where he falls more into like a groove sound, and those were my favorite parts of the album. But then on the title track, he does a little something different too. So if you want to go ahead and kick us off with Chemical Warlords.
All right. So we're going to get that super old school 80s fucking sound right off the bat. Like, this is a little bit jarring on this track. Like, it's a little bit more overbearing than it had been on previous stuff, and previous stuff had been extremely 80s.
I wrote down 3 words for the first track: super vintage sound.
It really is. And frankly, I was a little bit concerned listening to this first track that this is where we were going to go. It kind of levels out a little bit as we go on, so I was stoked about that. But, like, there's not a whole lot of substance here in terms of variety. You get 3 pretty catchy thrash riffs and to a straight drum, like thrash drum beat, and that's pretty much what you're going to get. Pretty much what the rest of the album's going to be, as you said, probably about 80% of this album is just those straightforward riffs. So
that's the recipe right there.
If you want like the missing 80s band when thrash first started out, like you could totally see this like matching up with a Kill 'Em All from Metallica. Like it's right there. We're going to move on to Black Out the Code. A little bit more aggressive vocals on. I need to go back. There's like chorusy vocals going on in that first track. That was interesting and a little bit corny, but
But it's vintage thrash.
Yeah.
So the like there's a certain element there that's kind of corny. Like, look at the cover art. The album art is it's cheeseball a little bit.
It looks like
but it's thrash.
80s arcade game.
Yes.
Big time. It's very cheesy, but it's cool. So Blackout the Code, we get a little bit more aggressive vocals on this. This is closer to the like last couple Toxic Holocaust albums and the Joel Grind solo project. I like this style of vocals better than I did that first one. The one thing that he does really, really nicely, and like it's for the style, dude can rip a solo though. So it's nice.
Yeah, there's one that blows the rest of the guitar solos away.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But yeah, the solos are well done. They're brief too. He just sort of shreds and then he goes back into his thrash riffs.
New World Beyond, a little bit of backwards intro here. The one thing that does change up nicely on this record, where you get mostly straightforward thrash beats and riffs, there's variety in the intros, and I do appreciate that quite a bit.
I thought that Blackout the Code and New World Beyond are you basically just copy and paste them and switch the riffs around a little bit to make it kind of fun. But they're essentially the same. Everything else,
right.
They're kind of the shell of those two tracks are very, very similar.
We get a little bit less of like the speed style riffs on this one. There's a really cool palm muted riff towards the end that I liked quite a bit. Deafened by the Roar. This is the first like standout track for me on the record. It's just fucking speedy goodness off the top, and this one, and like none of these tracks are long-winded by any means, but having a really, really short track here was a nice little change up.
It's
like
a minute and a half,
right? Especially because like you know what the formula is here. Having one riff, two riff, one riff, quick in and out, is not a bad way to do it.
Do you think that the legacy of punk music shows itself here at all?
Absolutely, but that's where you get out of 80s thrash. 80s thrash is you take British new wave heavy metal and late punk and you mix them together, hardcore punk, horror punk, and you stick them together, and that's how you make OG 80s thrash.
That track number 4, Deafened by the Roar, just screamed punk to me for those two reasons that you touched on. First, it's just really, really fast and just goes right through, and the length of the track is so short that I was like, this is a fucking punk song, or at least it has those roots. But it's a fun one.
Time's Edge, it's a pure 80s riff again. There's an almost like Van Halen-y section right in the middle. Guitar build up, it screams fucking Eddie. Yeah.
Strange echo effect on his vocals in this track, like ultra echoey.
It's chambery. It sounds like this whole album sounds like a remaster of old school 80s thrash album. It sounds a lot like it. You take a pretty not great sounding production and you clean it up like you would do on a remaster, and that's exactly what this sounds like. It just sounds like a missing album. It sounds like what Ghost's first album did to your 70s blues rock metal stuff.
Brilliantly put. That's a really good comparison. That's exactly what it is.
Moving on to the title track. Big intro on this one. Slow, kind of deathy riffs going on. This is one where we get a little bit of a change up that we haven't had yet. Does this weird little but it like cuts it out and does this like weird little cheesy like hi-hat ride type thing about the last third of the record. This track should have been first.
I feel the same way about that. Well, this track, I mean, obviously it's the title track.
Right.
But the intro is the most interesting part. Yeah. And you sort of have this like creepy sci-fi, and it almost sounds like someone's wearing a mask and they're breathing heavy.
It sounds like the cover looks.
Right.
Like it fits. Like you name the album or the track after the album, like it seems obvious, but I would have definitely put it first, especially because that first track just like it's a little bit off-putting to me. So
I'm sure he considered putting this first, but ended up going with like the most vintage 80s thrash sound he possibly could, and made that first instead to sort of be like, this is what this album's all about, and then put the title track in the middle instead, even though that is without a doubt the most interesting intro in this entire album, and it's probably the most metal. Like if you consider thrash its own thing, this is the most metal track.
Okay.
I would say. I don't know. That's the Adam Frieden weird version.
It's an interesting take. I'll take it. Iron Cage. Straight fucking thrasher on this one.
Same stuff.
We get a little bit of dual guitars on this, though, which was a nice little change up as well. It's like, the thing about doing these straightforward thrash tracks is every single time you do a little variation, it super pops, and it's really easy to catch them. So, a little bit of fun there, but as you say, other than that, it's pretty close to the rest. It's just hard to fucking get detail out of these songs. Like, if you're looking for a fucking fun, straight 80s thrasher that you don't have to pay that much attention to enjoy, like, this is right up your alley. Controlled by Fear. This was another track I really, really liked. There's this cool underlay on the intro. He plays around with a little bit of synth on this record, and it's there. Nice to do some tom-driven drum beats instead of just your straight thrash beats. Nice little change.
Yep, he holds off the solo on that track till the very end. It's like the last 30 seconds. That's definitely a cool one.
Aftermath. Really cool grindy bass in this one. I really, really like the bass tone. I really like that it stands out. This track has a nice crunchy center to it.
Aftermath was other than the title track, Aftermath was my other favorite track here. And it's because the second half of the track, he goes into basically like a groove metal thing, and it's just a change of pace that was very welcomed. That was one of the more interesting part. This is the 20% versus that 80% sort of sounds the same all the way through. This gave us a little something different, and it was well done.
We're going to wrap up with Cybernetic War. It's a galloping battle track. Fucking minute and a half long solo in the middle.
The best solo on the album.
Rips. The best part about that, I think this is a 5 minute. Oh, it's 4:20 is the length of the track, I think. Is it?
I think
this
it's
one?
5
It's
something.
This one's 5.
Yeah,
okay.
it's
I'm
the
trying to remember. I
longest.
think it's got to be Great or Gatecreeper that does that.
But also the very end of the track, the outro to the album is sustained for 45,
it's fade out for
seconds.
fucking forever.
But it's also putting you in back into that place that is sort of what the title track brought you in to, and it's like you said, sort of what's going on the album art. This is sort of the exiting that stage. Overall, a pretty neat album, aside for the problems that we already discussed. But, I'm not a huge thrash guy. I mean, I when I think of thrash, obviously I always think of that absolute masterpiece by Vector, which I knew you probably were just waiting for me to say, considering we're talking about thrash. But really, this is not that at all. I mean, what Vector did was really a progressive thrash. They're sort of their own thing, and now basically that band is blown up, unfortunately. But for what this album very clearly set out to do, he does very successfully. I think this is that classic sound that he's going for, and he nails it. For everything that Bastard Grave was, this is this for what he was shooting for.
That's a good take on it. I'm not upset with the sound, but I was really hoping for more of the Conjuring Command and the Chemistry of Consciousness sound. I think it's a little bit more aggressive. I think it's a little bit of a step forward, and I feel like this is a little bit of a step back. It's well executed. It's well performed. It's competent. And it's definitely a nice throwback. If you could, like I said, you can mix this into the first Megadeth record. Like, you just take some Exodus, take some Testament, throw this in a mix, and it's going to blend in with it just fine. But it's going to be interesting to see what's going to come out of this moving forward if we're going to go back to this sound. This seemed like almost a concept record. So, I don't know. It's a cool record. It's definitely not my favorite of the year. It's not even close.
Yeah, it's not going to be a pickup for me, but I'm not a thrash guy, so that's not really a fair way to judge it. I definitely think it's really cool. There's a lot of things he does on here that I like. But it's not my cup of tea. But glad that we decided to look at it.
Right. And it's interesting to see what you can do with modern production and keep it old school. Like I said, the sound sounds so much like a remastered copy of an old thrash album.
We do this a couple times every year, Al. We listen to albums that are trying to be a snippet out of another time and place. And they successfully do that. This is exactly that scenario. I mean, he made a vintage '80s thrash album, and he made it sound really, really good. But you're right. To your original point, it is amazing that what you can do with modern production techniques and the technology that's available to us. Like you said, this was right at home with those original guys that were doing thrash in the '80s. It's like perfectly in that spot. Pretty cool.
Looking for my Japanese copy. Seeing if that's going to be in jewel case. Because I'll pick it up if it's in jewel case. But otherwise I won't. This was another interesting thing because the Toxic Holocaust records have come out almost exclusively on Relapse Records. And this is the first departure from that. He's on E1 now. So, interesting. But we have another Relapse artist to move to in Gatecreeper, which we'll get to in a little bit.
I think I'd like another one of these if you wouldn't mind handing me one.
I'm down.
This is kind of getting better and better as we go.
I likes it. So, Relapse was kind of my go-to label in my late high school, early college era. You had your Mastodons and your Baroness and your Black Tusk and your Red Fang, and they were doing the remasters of the Death records.
Are they mostly American stuff? Because everything you just named is all American.
Yeah, I think they're mostly American stuff. So I've kind of moved on to mostly $20 Spin and Season of Mist have been the two heavy hitters of the past 5 years for me. So going back to picking up a Relapse album, I'm noticing they're doing this very 80s VHS looking style on their discs. Because I looked at Exhum's release, very similar.
Exhumed.
So I don't know if this is a thing that's going through now or if it's just been these last couple releases that they've been doing it. But it's interesting.
Speaking of which, did you recognize Mr. Mustache?
Yeah, Mustache is quite prominent.
Yeah. I kind of regret spilling the beans about that information last night to you instead of just blowing your mind here on the podcast that everyone could have enjoyed the shock. And so, turns out Gatecreeper is the death metal project of the core of guys from the melodic doom outfit Spirit Adrift, who we've covered pretty heavily the last couple of years. We reviewed Divided by Darkness by Spirit Adrift earlier this year. It's a good album. I'm quite a bit bigger of a fan than Al is on that stuff. But we were able to catch them live last year.
Yeah.
And they were a really fun time. Those guitarists are very, very good. But it's funny, when I looked at the picture of the guys from Gatecreeper, I noticed, I was like, hey, that's Nate Garrett from Spirit Adrift. I didn't realize that there was two other members from Spirit Adrift in it as well until I looked it up. And I was like, holy shit, this is just the death metal version of Spirit Adrift. So, out of Arizona...
Right, it should have been obvious because I was doing my... it all fucking started clicking because I'm going to allude to this later, but, there's a lot of doomy stuff on this album.
They cover a lot of ground on this album.
And doing the lookups on the stats on this band, there's not a whole lot of metal coming out of Arizona.
These guys are busy, I'll tell you that much. 2 albums in one year in 2 completely different genres. Damn impressive stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the highlight. There's a lot of highlights that we're going to go through here. Spoilers. The two of us are big fans here, so of this album. It's amazing. For me, the standout here is the vocal performance is absolutely killer.
Yeah, it's really good.
For me, it's 10 out of 10. It fits with the really dirty guitar tones. It fits, but he doesn't overdo it. You know, I think in death metal, when you're doing brutal growls, you can do a little bit too much. He's sort of just in that perfect little range that always works. Anything else you want to mention before we dive into the track by track?
No, I think we'll cover it in the track by track. So let's roll it.
Let's do it. Deserted by Gatecreeper.
Second full length. So they have a full length. They have an EP. And the EP they've distributed into a compilation with some tracks that they did for a couple split 7 inches. So this is like second full length, third-ish release from them. We start with the title track, as you would, unless you're Toxic Holocaust.
First 30 seconds of this track drew me in so much. There wasn't a single thing I didn't love about it. It's slow.
It's doomy.
It's filthy. It has... This is what I've always called the Edge of Sanity pedal. So Dan Sweno, in his first death metal band out of Sweden, they sort of pioneered that really... And I don't really have the vocabulary because I'm not a guitarist. I don't use pedals, but there's a certain pedal that they're using to give this sort of grindy... very distorted and not clean at all guitar tone.
Adam Friedman be like, do you know the tragedy of Dan Sweno?
And immediately on this opening track reminded me of another one of my favorite bands out of Seattle.
Nirvana.
Who came out with an album in 2015 called Slaves Beyond Death. That band is called Black Breath, and they sound very much like this. And it's because I'm such a big fan of that album, and the sound comes so close to it, I was just immediately drawn in. And they're consistent throughout with that sound, and it appeals to me to a very high level.
Word. So we get this big, slow, doomy start. We're going to let the drums do the shifting around for this, because they kind of stick with that main riff, and just let the drums kind of do like a little thrashy shift and throw in some like just double bass stuff. Starts gaining steam as it goes. This is going to happen throughout the album. They do these really short little leads. They're not even solos. They're just kind of like little, let the guitar do a quick little doodly riff and get out of it. Like no more than 20 seconds.
Interesting way to put it.
It's all over the fucking album.
Mm-hmm.
Little quick production note on that. Something that bugs me when I hear very punched in leads. Like you'll hear, it's hard to do this smoothly anyways when you're doing recording. Getting a lead section with a different effect on it to come in smoothly and not sound like it was just punched in, instead of like when you're on stage, you have a pedal, you switch your pedal, and it goes off. It tends to smooth out everything. You don't get that in the studio, and it's hard to make that come in. All these leads sound very punched in. Not really a problem, just kind of something that...
By punched in, you mean like copy and pasted?
No, that's the technical term on it, is you stop playing, and then you stop the track, and then you switch the effect, or you record all the main riffs, and then you go back in, and you punch in the spot that's missing.
I see.
It does the same thing to me that like a CGI moment does in a movie. That just like my eye instantly goes to it and catches it, and it's not really a problem. It's just something that I noticed. I'm moving on. Puncture Wounds. This is a much more in-your-face track. We get some screaming dive bombs at the beginning. Fucking love it. These guys have 3 major flavors that they use, and it's thrash, doom, and death. And there's just a really nice balance of what they do to blend those three.
Much faster, punchier track than the opener.
You get some thrash beats in there, as I said. Bass plays a really, really nice role in this one. And there's like a really, really dope guitar harmony reset closer towards the end. I really like what's going on in this track. It's a fun one.
Yep. Track number 3, From the Ashes. Everything about this track screams to me folk metal.
Really?
Yes.
I did not get that at all.
Your first 2 tracks, they don't really have this like catchier chorus that you could recognize right away. This track is the complete opposite. They have this chorus, and to me, it sounds a little bit folky, something you might hear on Amon Amarth or maybe
okay, yeah, you know what? I can buy into that because there's definitely
album.
like a ride into battle thing at the end.
And that's what I'm talking about. Or possibly on a Worm Witch album.
Hey, look at you.
There you go. But that actually, it comes a little bit later. Like it's not till like 3 minutes and 20 seconds to sort of shift into that.
Okay.
Into that folkier thing that I'm hearing.
I'm with you then.
And it's cool to hear this earlier on in the album, the first half and perhaps the first third of the album. You know immediately these guys are not one-dimensional. They are capable of doing all kinds of different things. But I think specifically just the fact that they can write and use a chorus in such a awesome death metal style that they can basically do anything. They bring things to the table, and they're not just gonna punch you in the face every single track. Like you get from a lot of death metal bands.
Right on. A lot of mid-tempo-ness to this album. Everything's really, really easy to, like, fucking rock to, which is unusual for a death metal album overall. It's just, on this track especially, it's just really fucking easy to rock to. So, fun stuff. Ruthless. I fucking love the bigga-digga-da-da section of this song. So much fucking fun.
I love bigga bigga da da.
That's how it goes.
This got back to that slow, nasty, putrid guitar tone that I love so much and that I crave in my depths of my soul in this album.
In the
this
bowels
track,
of your heart.
Just, oh man, it scratches every itch I have for death metal. It's so good, and Ruthless is just a perfect track title for it.
Everlasting. We're going to start low and slow on this one, and it just powers up to a nice blast beat section. Something I've been craving on the album so far, and I got it, and it's fucking beautiful. Couple cool leads on this one. They do some pinch harmonics. It's another little flavor that they are adding in that they haven't been adding in on the rest of the album. Fuck these guys, like... There's a mastery of all styles on this record.
Yeah, they bring a lot to the table.
It's fucking cool.
Everlasting, not my favorite track on the album. It just didn't draw me in as much as the rest. Mm-hmm. That was sort of a transition. So you sort of had your first half of the album, and then after this track is the rest of the album. And this was sort of that dead zone for me. Not to say it was bad, but it didn't stand out as much.
Barbaric Pleasure. Sounds sexy.
Sure does. It's another fast one.
Yeah, it's Full On Assault. It drops down to a slow groove. It's really nice. There's like these machine gun kicks that come in that are like not in terms of fast, but just in terms of how like big and in your fucking face they are. It's fun stuff.
It's a short one. It's under 3 minutes. And it sort of comes and goes really, really fast. You're just not human if you don't bang your head to that fucking track. It's oof.
I'm telling you, dude, this whole album, like, it's just the right fucking tempo to not fucking break your shit, but to, like, just rock the entire time, too. Sweltering Madness. Just layered with great fucking album titles.
Yes.
Or track titles, excuse me.
This track, as well as track number 9, In Chains, is, even in terms of the title tracks and the subject matter, you can tell lyrically is so in line with that Black Breath album that I'm talking about, Slaves Beyond Death. I would love to chat with Nate Garrett and the rest of the guys, see if that was at all a influence to them, because it's so, man, it's right up the same alley. And I just love that.
I can dig it. There's some vibrato in the guitars in the intro on this one. That's a cool little feature that hadn't been brought up yet and doesn't come back for the rest of the album. Those little one-offs that they do are just really fucking nice touches. This track, to me, has the most brutal riffage of the whole album, and I think it's dope as fuck. There's a Slayer-esque lead that happens in the middle of this.
So
it's fucking cool.
I was actually a little bit confused in the middle section of Sweltering Madness. So it goes kind of total chaos. And I had trouble hearing exactly what was going on. I think that both the guitars were doing something different.
Mm-hmm. That's what a Slayer lead sounds like.
But I listened to, like chaos is the only way I can really, is the only word I can think of to describe what's happening. It's just kind of, I don't know if confused is the right word, but it left me like wondering what was going on. And there's some weird production thing happening too, where I can't quite hear it as well as I kind of wished I could. I think that the best moments in this album are where they're doing that the slow and low, just those really dirty, long, drawn out, almost like when the guitars are holding whole notes. Just that's what pleases my ear. Those are my favorite moments on this, not that chaotic section.
Yeah, I like the chaotic section. Boiled Over. This is a very rocker track. You get a little bit of double kicks in the middle and the end section, but it stays kind of like a mid-rocker the whole time. This was the most pedestrian track on the album for me. Not bad, just... It's another one of those easy to nod your head to, but didn't really stand out in the rest of the album.
Yeah, I don't have much for that one either.
Right on. In Chains, we get to go thrashy again. Bass and guitar complement each other really, really well on this one. They do a little bit of harmony stuff. That's a nice little touch again. Like, fuck, dude, these guys just can give you a consistent sound and just pop a little bell and whistle on each track that's just not there in any of the other stuff. And this is a perfect example of that. 2 really short solos on this track that are both really fucking great. This comes back to those where you have like little in and out leads. These felt like solos more than they did leads.
Yep. I hadn't thought of phrasing it the way that you were saying it. I just consider those guitar solos, and I'm like, why are your solos so short?
Right.
So that's essentially what you were getting at.
Yeah, it's more of a lead than a solo. It's
right.
Quick in and out, and it's more of a guitar feature than it is a solo. But these are like solos.
It's a guitar feature little mini section.
Yeah. And we're gonna close out with Absence of Dude, I cannot fucking talk today. Well, my problem is Absence of Light.
You don't talk so good.
I don't talk good. I don't know how to speak American.
Guitar harmonizing all over the place on this track, but it's still like that dirty sound. Oh, it's so wonderful. So wonderful.
There's a really, really great call and response section with the guitars dropping out and the vocals and drums just doing a thing, where you'll go back and forth with guitar and vocal, or drum and vocal, and the guitars jump in, and then drum and vocal, and guitars jump in. One of my favorite moments on the album. Really fucking fun. Really cool sound. Again, a big fucking fade out to close out the record.
Yeah.
Craziness.
Well, did you have the bonus track on your version?
I did not have a bonus track.
Yeah, so there's a bonus track called Anxiety, at least on the Google streaming.
Did not have it.
It's a really fast track. I don't know if that's original or if it's a cover, but it's a fun one. But I kind of figured that we would run into this where that was on like a special edition or whatever the hell. But yeah, about Absence of Light, I love and actually throughout the whole album, unlike the Toxic Holocaust, you're comparing apples and oranges here, obviously, but where the Toxic Holocaust vocal phrasing is the same all the way through. He has like 2 bars. He like takes off a bar, and then he has 2 bars
Sure.
of lyrics, and then so on and so forth. That does not happen at all on Gatecreeper. I love the vocal phrasing and the guitar phrasing, especially on that last track, Absence of Light. How it's just more or less free form. It sounds like he's just like getting his death metal groove on as he sees fit. He's not in a box of any sort. Like I said, especially on that last track. Great album. I don't want to get ahead of myself or anything, but this was a big surprise. I had heard the word Gatecreeper before. I know of this band.
Mm-hmm.
So I must have heard that first album at some point when it came out. But I was not expecting such a slap in the face. Because for a year where we've sort of been waiting for some of our favorite guys to have their 2019 release, it's so nice to get a surprise. That's exactly what this one was for me. And I'm freaking thrilled because it's outstanding. Just so happens you have a copy of it right here.
I do.
And crazy album art.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Manner of Infinite Forms.
I was going to say, it reminds me of Tumult. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. This is one of those records that, like, everybody gets their fucking music info their own way, but, like, when you scour the way that we scour, and you find an album that comes up consistently with everybody sucking their dick, like, this is one of those albums that, like, you can't ignore it when so many people are saying good things about it, and this album just deserves every fucking bit of it. It's a really, really cool record. And I love being able to find death metal for you because it makes you so happy.
Yeah. So I recently started a new job, and so things have been a little bit hectic the last month. That's why we sort of been off for 3 weeks or 4 weeks here.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
So apologies there, but we're back at it. We're not going anywhere. And yes, I slipped up and didn't discover this one. I let the Lumberslayer take the lead, even though it's right up my alley. But it is great. And thank you for pointing that out. I'm glad we didn't at least skip over it.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and we're coming up on a really, 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 really nice stretch.
Yes.
Close out the rest of the year. It is Saturday the 13th, or Sunday the 13th, excuse me. 2 days ago, we had the new Cadaver record come out.
Ooh.
That's going to be high up on the list. We have the trifecta of Alcest, Mayhem, and Cloak coming out in 2 weeks. That's going to be a very big week for us.
Yes, that's huge. And then don't forget about Cattle Decapitation.
Cattle Decap. Nile, first week of November, if I'm not mistaken.
We might have to do 3 in 1 episode coming up here.
That'll be fun.
To get everything in. Because, I mean, there's no way we're not going to go deep on anything we just mentioned.
Right. So, it is a sprint towards the end.
Yep, we've got some guests lined up before the holidays, so that'll be a really, really good time. Looking forward to that. And if you wouldn't mind, get your glass over here because we got to pop this last beer.
Oh, we do.
Now, I think I perhaps have mentioned this before on the podcast, but if you held a gun to my head and asked me what my favorite brewery is, I'm pretty sure I would have to, again, in a pinch, say that Mikkeller is my favorite brewery. Now, some of the stuff they still brew over in Denmark, but the majority of the stuff, including this beer, this beer here, is from Mikkeller San Diego. They do have other Mikkellers in the works. There's one that opened, Mikkeller NYC, which is, I think, like connected to the Mets stadium there.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is odd. And I've heard rumblings from your good boy Ben Wilson that a Mikkeller Detroit might be a thing.
I'm into that.
Which that would be fun. Anyways, we're gonna sample this Mikkeller beer here real quick. It's called Awful Gato Imperial Brown Ale with vanilla and coffee.
Sounds delightful.
And it's hefty, and it's exactly what we need right now. Are the Lions playing today?
No, they're Monday night against the Packers.
Monday.
At Lambeau. So we're not getting rolling into that. Hockey's back, though.
Hockey is back.
I'm fucking
Why
stoked.
don't you do the honors there, my good man?
Oh, man.
Like, get the rest of this lager in me.
Yeah. Fucking... We've said it a billion times because we keep having Mikkellers on here, but really fucking fun artwork on their cans, man.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same artist and just absolutely slays the game. They're fun. They don't take themselves too seriously, but also very recognizable with the style.
Is there any update on the Evil Twin saga?
Not that I know of. Both breweries are doing wonderful things. That much is for sure. I mean, we're living in such an incredible time. Like, I can go to the holiday market here in Royal Oak, and there's I can get both of those breweries, which are two of my favorites, and I feel spoiled. Of course, this is when I'm drinking non-Michigan beer, which is almost a rarity because I support the home team.
Word. Can't go wrong either. Shit's a delightful.
So what else did you pick up? I know that you dropped by the record store.
So we picked up Cadaver's new record and Lacuna Coil. I got a weird thing for... Are you familiar with Lacuna Coil at all?
I know of them, but I'm not really familiar at all.
Lacuna Coil is one of those like leftover from my weird high school metal phase where you're still trying to figure things out. They're kind of gothy a little bit. I don't think they're going to be up your alley. Female vocals. Give it a shot. See how you feel.
Lacuna Coil.
Lacuna Coil. They've put out 1.5 billion fucking records. They've been out for a minute. I shouldn't associate them with, but like, I don't know why, but I kind of get they just seem to like fit in the like Cradle of Filth thing to me. Like, it just seems like the metal bands that you get into, like, for way no, I'm not even gonna say that because it's fucking stupid. They're your figuring out metal in high school phase band. So if you grew up between 2000 and like 2008.
So you're suspecting that other people have had the same experience as you.
Yes.
And you're not just some isolated kid.
Yeah, way to fucking make me feel good about that, sir. Cheers.
I can already smell the vanilla. Whoa.
Oh, that's fucking good. This is like...
Oh, man.
Next level what you get with the vanilla Java Porter from... why can't I fucking think of the name?
The vanilla Java, was that a Michigan beer?
Yes, they're in Detroit. They've been around forever. Atwater. Jesus Christ.
Oh.
This has the bitterness that it's lacking from the vanilla Java Porter. Heaviness. That's really nice.
Yeah, that's delightful.
It's almost caramely.
It's so surprising. It's Mikkeller.
I know,
it
right?
should suck ass. Am I right? No, seriously, man. That's awesome.
We've had it sitting out since the beginning of the pod too. Yeah, plus Adam's travel time. It's like perfect temp.
Yeah, it's the correct way to be drinking this. Yeah, that's awesome.
Does it say what kind of coffee it has?
It's just vanilla and coffee. Yes, and don't forget. So this is a Imperial Brown Ale.
Mm-hmm.
So there's it's not a porter. It's not a stout. It's obviously very, very dark.
Like, where's the stereotypical Starbucks white girl crossover with this beer? Why aren't the ladies into this?
That's awesome. The only thing I've had that's like this by Mikkeller that's better is all the Beer Geek.
Yeah.
Breakfast stouts, but those are stouts, so you can't really directly compare it to a brown. But yeah, that's very, very well done.
There's a really bitter, aggressive back end to it. That's
the coffee, I think.
Really nice.
I think that when you add coffee to a beer, sometimes it can overshadow anything else. This is, I think, vanilla up front. Dude, it's almost like a vanilla sweetness. And then, as you say, you get this like bitter coffee thing on the second half. And it's delightful.
Right, and it's really easy to get that like fake vanilla overwhelming on it, and like it almost blends caramely with this. It's really nice.
And the bloke on this fucking can wrestling his cat, that was me wrestling my cat the first year and a half that I owned him.
He's got a ball sack face.
And now he's just a fat cat who sits around the house and does nothing. But back in those days, we would go at it because he was a bad cat.
Bad at being a cat.
But now he's a good cat. And he just sleeps and eats, as a cat should.
Yeah, I think the cat's been sleeping this whole time, which has been nice. No Benny's feature. He
Yeah,
was
true.
vocal this morning. I was waiting for that to happen.
He tuckered himself out.
He really did. We have any more business we need to get to, sir? Anything pressing?
Other than the rest of this beer, not really. I'm thrilled to sort of get back into the saddle because the last month has been so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Sick kid, new job, training the other person to take over my old job, which I was responsible for. So that got that behind me, and I'm gonna close out the year very, very strong, and so that is the plan.
Badass.
We are having some technical video issues, so for all the YouTube folks, apologies. We will get back onto that, even though we will be posting to YouTube. You won't have the usual video, but I think we're gonna have that figured out.
Word. I'm excited. The hockey's back. I can't not mention that enough. It's fucking fun.
They've been. They lost last night. The Red Wings, that is, obviously. But they've really battled hard. You can tell that they've got a lot of hope. I really like the direction that things are headed in. We're in probably the best division in the league right now, and so that just doesn't do us any favors. But it's fun to watch, and I'm happy with the direction things are headed. So
Hell yeah. Real quick, a silence notes. We are working out the mixes and masters right now for our EP. It's looking like we're gonna release at the beginning of next year. Just really hoping to get it out before the year end. Doesn't seem feasible at this point, so is what it is. We're gonna be probably like second, third week of January, something like that. We're gonna shoot a couple music videos in November, and stay tuned because it's gonna be fun. I'm fucking so excited about this shit, dude.
you should be, because I've worked really hard on it. These samples that I heard are primo.
Hell yeah.
So, looking forward to that. You know, also don't sweat the release date, man. It's a big thing for you guys to put out the EP. So,
I'm really hoping that next year is a little bit of a down year compared to these last 2 years, so that we can stand out maybe a little bit. Because I will say, trying to sneak our way into the year and try and find any kind of support. There's so much fucking quality this year. It's be very small fish in a giant pond situation. So
I think you guys will find your niche, and the people will catch on.
Right on.
That's what I believe.
If anybody's looking to have some fun with the silence, we're playing in Lansing 2 weeks in a row. We're doing. Let me bring up the calendar right quick.
And Lansing is a good place to play because good beers coming out of Lansing as well.
Indeed.
You can have your medals. You can have your beers.
Shout out to Ben Winston again.
Benny.
18th, we will be at The Loft, and the 26th, we will be at Mac's Bar. MAC. 'S bar. So, good times. Lots of opportunities. Oh, also, we will be at the Diesel Lounge on November, I want to say 11th? No, not the 11th. I gotta look that up. Don't worry about that. We'll worry about Lansing right now, because we'll get back before that one anyways.
Looking forward to Lansing. I'm going to come to one of those shows at least. So
Gonna be a good time, so stick with us. So for this week's Lumberslayer and Friends podcast, I've been Alex Lumberslayer along with
Adam Friedman.
And we'll see you. Now that the show's over.
Pepperoni pizza.
Gregor
Clegane. Checkaroo. Like Clegane.
Okay. Comfy. Cozy.
Merlin's just rolling his eyes.
That fucking guy.